Hey, what's up, everybody? In this exciting episode, we're going to talk about variables, operators, and a little bit about how computers work. Now, this is not a theoretical course, but I do want you to understand some of the basic principles that are happening underneath the hood so you can have a foundation to build upon. And of course, you're going to want to learn these things at some point in time anyway and dive deeper into them. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is talk about variables. So go ahead and pull open a browser here, and we're going to say, what is a variable in programming? Common question popped right up. And we're going to do this one right here. Launch school books Ruby read variables. What is a variable? Variables are used to store information to be referenced and manipulated in a computer program. That's a good definition. They also provide a way of labeling data with a descriptive name, so our programs can be understood more clearly by the reader and ourselves. It is helpful to think of variables as containers, that's a key word, as containers that hold information. Their sole purpose is to label and store data in memory. This data can then be used throughout your program. Okay, so they're like a container that can hold data. Well, what does that even mean? Well, let's think about what's going on under the hood here. I'll pull up my Photoshop here for you. There we go. And what does that mean? Grab my pen. So let's say you've got your RAM in your computer, okay? This is your RAM. You know how when you're like, I need to upgrade my RAM on my computer, it needs to go faster, or you've heard somebody say that, and you don't really know what it means, or you just say it, and it's like, well, yeah, more RAM means a faster computer. Well, what does that even mean? RAM. Okay. RAM, what does that have to do with variables? Well, RAM is random access memory. Random. So it means that things are going to be stored in it, randomly accessed and retrieved, and things will be cleared out of it. Okay, so what happens is when you create a variable, which you haven't seen yet, but when you create a variable, okay, it is representing data that is being stored in a memory location. So let's say we've got a number, okay, like the number 23, okay, and I don't know what the binary value of this, but computers read zeros and ones, true or false, so this is all pretend, but let's say this was 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. Again, that's not the right value for that. I could look it up online. I can't do it in my head, sorry. Anyway, so this is kind of hard to remember, right? Do you think you could remember binary for every single thing that needs to happen in your program? Probably not. So what happens is we use variables, and so we say, oh, 23. Well, let's say this variable's name is age. Age is a lot easier to remember than 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, right? So we give a variable a name, and it has a value, okay? A name, so the container, the value, and then this is stored in a memory location somewhere, and who knows what that is, X, 1, 0, whatever. Okay, some random access memory location, and your program stores it in there. And then when it needs it, let's say you have a calculator app, okay, and you type in a number, well, it stores a variable somewhere in your app, which goes onto your RAM, and it's stored there. And then when you clear it out, maybe it's gone. You don't need it anymore. So then it's cleared out of your memory. Okay. So when somebody says, "Oh, I need to upgrade my computer, get more RAM, so my programs can run faster," what that really means is you may have multiple programs. Okay. Let's say this is Photoshop. Okay. Let's say this is Xcode. Let's say this is Android Studio. Okay. Well, all of these. Okay, all these programs, they need spots in memory. So the more memory you have, the more variables you can store, and the faster they're going to run, because if you don't have enough, what's going to happen is they're going to go in there, and they're going to go on a wait list. They can't go in until memory's cleared out, so it's going to be in a wait list. So if you ever loaded a program, and it's like loading and taking forever, and you're like, what's going on? Well, it could be that you don't have enough RAM, and all these programs are trying to save data in your random access memory, and it can't because there's not enough space. Okay, so a variable is a container that has a value of some kind, and the container references a point in memory, a memory location, and it helps us to write readable code so we don't have to do things like this. So we don't have to understand this kind of stuff because I surely can't understand it. So that's kind of how computers work with variables and applications. They store data, they retrieve data, but you get to use readable variables up here at the top that will make your life much easier than having to remember anything else. Okay, so that's variables in a nutshell. And I'm going to close this out now. So we've talked about variables. Well, let's show you what a variable actually is. Go ahead and open up your Xcode. Xcode 8. And we're going to go ahead and get started with a playground. And I'm going to call this variables. And let's store this in the Swift folder. I'll create a new folder called variables. And create. So by default, your playground, your Xcode playground, will actually give you a variable. And here it is. var. Okay, var is short for variable. You're telling the program, hey, this is a variable. It's a container that I want to put data in. And what's this? This is the name. We can call this whatever we want. There's some things that aren't allowed. Okay. We can't put numbers in the front of a variable name. Okay. But you can use words and then a number, like day one. You can do things like that. But in our case, we want to write the word message. Variables should always be descriptive. Okay. They should be descriptive. They should tell you what's being stored in there. And then we're storing some words. And this is called a string specifically. When there's two quotes, that is called a string. And the key term, if you're really interested, is a string literal. This is a string literal that is being created right here on the fly. And it says, hello, playground. And the playground is kindly printing this up to the screen for us. So this is your very first variable. And this is a string. So the data type is a string, characters, words. And this is being stored in the variable. And then underneath the hood, when your program is running, this, well, actually even right now, this program is running on our Mac. And so this is actually being stored. This is being stored in the memory on the computer somewhere, which is pretty cool. I think it's cool. And so that's all happening for us automatically. And maybe you're wondering up here, what is import UIKit? Well, import means somebody else wrote a lot of code for us. In this case, Apple. They wrote a lot of code, and we're importing it so we can use it. So UIKit lets us use the cool features of iOS, like views and pop-ups and screens and view controllers. And that's all included here inside of this, a bunch of code that they wrote, and we're bringing it in. It also includes a framework called Foundation, which includes Swift, which lets us do things like this, which is pretty cool. So that's your very first variable. We gave it a descriptive name. We started it off with a keyword specifying var, and then we said hello playground. Variables can be changed, okay? Variables can be changed, whereas something called a constant cannot, okay? Variables can be changed as many times as you want, though. And the only thing that we didn't cover was this, the equals sign. This is called an assignment operator, and that's the key word if you want to write that down, is the assignment operator. And what the assignment operator does is it assigns a value from the right-hand side into something on the left-hand side, typically a variable. So that means we are taking something over here and we are putting it over here, okay? The assignment operator. So let's talk about operators for a minute. We've talked about variables and how they work. Let's talk about operators, okay? So there are three types of operators in Swift, or most languages anyway. So there are urinary, binary, and ternary. What does that even mean? That is a very good question. Urinary operator only works on one target. So if you look at this right here, okay, is this a urinary operator? No. It's actually a binary because it works on two. And look at the keyword or the prefix here, bi, you know, it means two, okay? So this works on two, so this is a binary. But what is a urinary? Well, a urinary works on a single operator. And so, for instance, you can have a variable that's called a Boolean. So, you know, am I cool? This is a variable called am I cool? And we're going to say equals true. Okay, that's pretty cool. I'm cool. But, you know, then some new phase or fad comes out, and new clothes, and I haven't upgraded yet, so now I'm uncool. Well, we can use a urinary prefix operator. You can write that down, urinary prefix operator, and we can say, well, we can say am I cool equals not am I cool, so the opposite of what I am. So right here, is this operating on one target or two targets? Well, it's only operating on one target, this one right here. So this is a urinary operator. You know, like unicycle, okay, 1. So what we're saying here is, am I cool? That's true. We're saying the opposite, not am I cool. So we're saying false, and then we're shoving it back into here. So now am I cool is false. So I'm no longer cool because some new fad came out. You know, remember back in the day, like in 2006, when Paris Hilton like put on these big, huge aviator sunglasses, and before that, no one had seen those since like the 70s. And then all of a sudden, every girl on the street in the world, like within 1 week, had big aviator glasses. Okay, so if you didn't have them, you were uncool. Just like I'm uncool here because this new thing came out and I didn't adopt it. So urinary, okay, operates on 1 target. Binary operates on 2 targets. Okay, a left and a right, as you can see right there. And when you're programming, you're not going to use these terms, but if you're going for an interview or something like that, they may bring these up and ask you to define them. So it's good to know. Just good stuff to know. Lastly, a ternary operator works on 3 objects. And in Swift, there's only 1 ternary operator. And I'll show you the syntax. You'll use it as you become a more advanced programmer, but let's just show you for sake of completeness. Again, you don't have to memorize all this. This is just an overview. So what we can do here is, let's see here. We're going to have another variable called feel good about myself. Okay, feel good about myself equals true. So that's a variable. It's of type Boolean. Okay, it's a Boolean type, which we'll talk about later. And we're storing true into this container here, this variable. So let's do a ternary operator just for fun. Okay, so feel good about myself equals, and we're going to say, am I cool? So if I am cool, okay, question mark, if I'm cool, then feel good, or then true, otherwise false. That's what we want to do. And maybe you're thinking, what's going on here? This is so confusing. And you should be confused. If you're absolutely new to programming, this should not make any sense. But I'm showing you what a ternary operator is with 3 targets. So what this is saying is, so right now, I feel good about myself. I feel great, right? But then that new fad comes out, and I'm not cool anymore. So what we're doing here is we're saying, is this true or false? If this is true, okay, so that's what we're saying here with the question mark. If this is true, then let's put true into feel good about myself. Because now I feel good about myself because I am cool, okay? And if I'm not cool, otherwise, false. We're going to shove false into here. And I no longer feel good about myself. And I'm a very shallow person. So that's a ternary operator because it works on 3 targets, right here, and right here. Does that make sense? Another example is, just to show you this ternary operator one more time without the trues and false. Let's say I've got a variable called bank account balance equals, let's say, 100. And then what we'll do is we'll say bank account balance. Actually, you know what we'll do is we'll say var bank message. Okay, ATM. How about cash register message? Cash register message. So we want a message that we're going to print out to someone who wants to buy something at a store, right? Cash register message. Okay, so it's going to equal, and what we're going to do is we're going to say if bank account balance, okay, is greater than or equal to, let's say, 50. Okay, so if bank account balance is greater than or equal to 50, and these are logical operators which we haven't covered yet. If it's greater than or equal to 50, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to say you just bought the item. Otherwise, you are broke as a joke. Okay, so what we're saying here is we run a check here. We do a conditional statement. If your bank account balance is greater than or equal to 50, maybe this is a pair of shoes you're going to buy, then here's the question mark, and then we say you just bought this item. So if this is true, let's do this. Otherwise, you are broke as a joke. So watch, as I turn this item to $150, you're now broke as a joke. So this is, again, a ternary operator. Okay, there's 3 things happening here. 1, 2, and 3. Ternary 3. Okay, and again, this last one, ternary, you use it less often. You will use it though, and you don't have to know it right now. If this is confusing at all, that's okay. This stuff takes time to get down, but that's a ternary operator. Some other operators that we'll learn about later, such as arithmetic operators. That's a key word, a key phrase. Arithmetic operators such as adding and subtracting and dividing. There's also a remainder operator for doing division and then getting the remainder of the result, because division does not give you remainders, things like that. But we'll talk about that later. This was just a synopsis of how variables work, what a variable is. We talked a little bit about unary operators, binary operators, and ternary operators. And you learned that you can create a container called a what? If you said variable, that's right. And so you create a variable by starting with the var keyword. Then you give the container a name, message, and then you can store a value into that, such as a string. This is called a string of characters and words, or a Boolean, true or false, or a number even. You can assign in there using the assignment operator, which is a binary operator because it works on 2 targets. And again, this is a unary operator because it works on 1 target. So cool stuff here. It's fun to learn about these things. You should dig more into it. Go on the internet and search about unary operators, binary operators, ternary. Go back to that Google search on what is a variable in programming. It's so important to know these things, and I'll always say that over and over again because you want to become a good programmer. So that's it for now. Mark Price at devslopes.com, and we are opening the doors into a brand new world of magic and excitement. Ooh, see you later.